Hello, I'm your instructor, Doug Heldfell, for Mathematical Reasoning, Math 103. I wanted to introduce you to our mortgage project, the first project we'll do for this course. I'm going to go through step by step and kind of explain the project, the different steps you'll be doing to complete the project, hopefully clarify a lot of questions you have before you even start the project. If you do have additional questions, please feel free to email me, contact me. Of course, if you're in Spearfish or Rapid, you could go to my office hours. Otherwise, you'll just have to get a hold of me online. I'll be happy to answer questions about the project. You're welcome to ask questions about it. It's not a test. You're not doing this by yourself on your own. You can definitely get help from others, get help from me, work with a friend. I do request that everybody turns in their own project. I have designed it so it's pretty obvious if a student uses the same project as someone else or if they turn in the same work. So that shouldn't be an issue. Everybody should be doing their own project. But you're definitely welcome to get help with it. As you note at the top of the page and on the syllabus, it stays the same. The project is due March 20th. By that date, you need to either email a copy of this to me completed or need to post it in Dropbox. There will be a Dropbox available for both projects in D2L where you can submit your project, and then I'll have one when we get to the second project as well. But it needs to be submitted by that March 20th deadline. That is a pretty strict deadline. If you're having trouble with submitting it, please contact me. But at the very least, you should be able to just take photos of your work and send them to me via email if you can't get it submitted any other way. Okay, let's start talking about the project. So the idea with this project is you're getting ready to buy a house. You're going to start before you're actually buying the house by investing some money and letting that grow with interest for a few years, and then taking that investment and using that for a down payment. So at the very beginning, you're going to start with $4,000. So today you have $4,000 that you can invest. There's three different ways you can invest this. You have bonds, stocks, and a saving account. You do have to buy at least some bonds, buy at least some stocks, and then any money that's left over will go in the savings account. You must, like I said, put $4,000 in each option. So you have $4,000 total to spend. This is not $4,000 each. This is $4,000 total between the stocks, the bonds, and then this first savings account where you're going to put whatever's left over. Okay, so first off, you're going to buy bonds, and you have three choices. There are local municipal government bonds, national government bonds, and corporate bonds. The bond credit rating here basically is the safety level of the bond. The higher the credit level, the safer the bond is, the less likely it is to go bankrupt over the time that you hold this bond and not pay you back. So a AAA we consider really safe. They're probably going to pay you back your money. A is pretty safe. It's probably going to get your money back. C is not very safe. There's a bit of risk involved here, so there's a good chance you might not get your money back out of this bond. You'll see that they all have their face value. Remember, face value is the value of the bond originally when it was first purchased. We are buying these bonds on a secondary market, though, so the bond price we will be paying is this bond price here. This would be the current price. So you can see some of these bonds are in high demand and they're a little higher price than they originally were. Some are on sale because they're not in very high demand, and so their price is actually lower than the original price. The coupon rate here is the interest rate the bonds pay when you use the face value. Remember that face value and coupon rate are what we use together to calculate the simple interest that bonds pay. And remember, bonds pay simple interest. You're going to choose how many of each bond you want to buy. You can buy multiples of any one of these. You can buy just one type. You're not restricted, on what you can buy here, except for that you need to buy whole number amounts. You can't buy half a bond or a fourth of a bond. You can buy 1, 2, 3, etc. of any one of these bonds. I'm going to have you do this part over here the first week after this is available, and then I'm going to be posting the bond's lifespans. The maximum lifespan will be 5 years. If a bond lasts all 5 years, it means that it will pay you 5 years worth of interest, plus at the end you will get back your original face value. Remember that when you buy a bond, they promise to pay you the face value. Just because you paid extra for it does not mean that they're going to pay you extra later. They will still pay you the face value at the end. If a bond defaults partway through its lifespan, say in year 3, we'll say the corporate bonds in year 3 defaulted, then in that case they would only pay you 2 years worth of interest, and then in that 3rd year before they paid you interest they defaulted, and so all you get were the first 2 years of interest. You never get your face value back if they default before and they don't last all 5 years. Again, if they last all 5 years, then you would get 5 years worth of interest and the face value. But if they default partway through, you only get the interest leading up till that final year where they defaulted. So decide how many bonds you're going to purchase, find out the total you spend on these bonds using the bond price and how many you purchase, and that's what would be your answer for A. That would be the total price you spent on bonds. Like I said, you must invest some of your money on bonds. And then down here, just some of those same things I mentioned, like the bond credit ratings and the bond lifespan. Again, we'll determine this. We're not going to do it in class because, of course, we're online, but I will do this and I'll post these market condition results as a news item in D2L and share them as well on my math lab. About a week after these are really available, after we've started working on these projects. Okay, part 2, or question 2. Now we're going to be investing in stocks. You, again, just like the bonds, can buy multiple stocks. You can buy financial corporation stocks, pharmaceutical corporation stocks, or tech company stocks. Those are all choices for the stocks. The volatility here actually shows you how much you expect the price to fluctuate. A lower volatility, like a financial corporation, the price is not going to fluctuate a whole lot. So we're going to expect it to stay fairly close to where it is. It can go up and it can go down either way, but it's probably stay somewhat close to that $42 share price. Pharmaceutical is moderate, so it's going to fluctuate a little bit more. Again, it still can go up or down. We'll see what happens. But it's going to be probably a little further from its $48 price when it's done than that original financial corporation. And then the tech company stocks have high volatility. They are going to probably change quite a bit in price. They're going to have a lot more variation in their price. I want you to pick how many shares you're going to buy. Again, you cannot buy partial shares. You can't buy half a share of the company. You can buy a whole share. You can buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever amount of shares, but it has to be whole numbers. So take that price per share that you're spending, and then the number of shares you're buying, and that will tell you your total spent. We're going to total these up, and that'll be how much you spent for B. Now, I will go back later and tell you how your bonds do. So I'll give you your annual return. This is similar to the annual return using the formula that we've been using in the homework and the test. But the difference here is we're not trying to find annual return. I'm going to give it to you. So you'll know what your annual return is. You can treat it basically for the project like an APR because it's an annual percentage rate that you're going to use. So when we get to the later part, I'll kind of explain how we'll use this annual return as an APR and calculate how much your stocks are worth later on. Again, you need to spend at least some of $44,000 on stocks. You don't have to do all 3 options. You can pick, if you want to do 1, 2, or 3 options. And again, the volatility is going to talk about your risk. If it's more risky, you could be a higher profit if it as well, but it could also be a bigger loss if it does poorly. Okay, once you've bought your bonds and bought your stocks, your next step is going to be investing the rest of the money, what you have left of this $4,000, in a savings account. So we have a savings account that's going to earn 4.8%. This is supposed to be kind of a high yield account compared to your typical big savings account. This is going to be money that's compounded monthly, and it's going to be left untouched for 5 years. We are only making a one-time deposit in this account, so you definitely don't want to be using the systematic savings plan formula on this. This is not something we're making multiple deposits. We are making a one-time deposit. You would want to look at a future value compound interest formula for this, and note it's compounded monthly. Because this is only growing at 4.8%, probably not going to grow a whole bunch, but it will definitely be a little bit more than what we had when we start, if we put it in there and just let it grow with interest. You'll notice this 4.8% is a bit lower than all those, percents the bonds had. So probably don't want to put a whole bunch of your $4,000 in the savings account because even the safest bond option is probably going to earn you more interest in the long run than something in the savings account would. So that's why we're just putting the remainder of our money in this account. Okay, now that you've invested in those different things, the next part of the project will be figuring out how they did, how much money you have from these. So you will need those market conditions. Like I said, I'll give those to you, so you'll have to wait for that before you can do these next couple problems. Once you know the bond lifespan, so you know how long the bonds are lasting, then you can go here and calculate how much the bonds will be worth after 5 years. Note that if you buy more than one kind of bond, you're going to have to do this formula for this problem part more than once. Remember that bonds do not compound. There's no compound interest for bonds. Bonds pay simple interest. So to do this problem, you will need to use the simple interest formula. So you'll need to do it once for each different type of bond you have. Remember that they're doing this for 5 years. And remember that bonds, when you're paying coupon rate or using the coupon rate for interest, that's based on the original face value, not on the current yield. Next, you're going to calculate for your stocks how much those will be worth after 5 years. So you can use that annual return. Again, I'll have to give that to you with the market conditions about a weekend. Remember that stocks grow in a continuously compounded form or way. Over time, as they grow, new growth accrues on top of that already existing growth, or if they lower, it happens on top of that. So you would use a continuous compound formula for stocks. Again, if you have more than one kind of stock, you'll have to do the formula once for each different kind. I do ask that you total your amounts for 4 and for 5, for 4 and total amounts for 5. If you have 3 different stocks on 5, I'd want one number at the end finally to tell me what your total amount for stocks is. Yes, you have to find the 3 different parts, but then I would like you to total that as well and tell me how much you have total from the stocks. Because that's what we really want to know is how much money you have from stocks, how much you have from bonds, because we're going to use that to figure out how much later you have for a down payment when you buy a mortgage or buy your house. Now, just in case you buy some not so great stocks and bonds, I did want to make sure you have at least some money for your down payment for this house. So you're going to have number 6, where you deposit $259 each month for 5 years using the systematic savings plan, where you earn 7.45% compounded monthly. I want to know how much this will be worth after 5 years. This one is a systematic savings plan situation because you are depositing money month after month. So this would be a systematic savings plan. And this should give you at least some money, so no matter what, you should be able to buy a house, even if your stocks and bonds don't do that well. Number 7, we're just totaling our answers from 3, 4, 5, and 6. So our first savings account, our bonds, our stocks, and then the new savings, the second savings account we just put money into. If we total that all up, that's how much money you'll have to go pay your down payment and your closing costs when you get your house. So that's going to be the first part of the project. It's just saving up money, doing some investing, so that we'll have a chunk of money to go use towards getting this house. Part 2 starts by finding the house you want to buy. So your first question, number 8, you're going to actually go and pick out a house. And I would like you to actually go online and look up a house that you want to buy. I've had students in the past look for a dream home. I've had students buy the house they actually already live in. They wanted to see how much it was, or like kind of do it with that. Especially people that recently bought their house. It's kind of interesting to learn about that. I'm fine with whatever. I do ask that you print out and attach with your project 1 page. I don't need more than 1 page. I don't need a 20-page like Zillow listing. Just 1 page that shows the price of the house would be all I need. That's really all I want. So print off a page. If it's a house you already bought and you just have the paperwork at home, you could give me the 1-page listing, whatever, include that. But just 1 page that shows me the price of the house. And then go ahead and actually list the price here. That way I have it in 2 different spots. I can double check. Okay, so that's where you're going to pick out a house. And then you're going to calculate your down payment. So this little formula, one of the math teachers, the math teacher actually wrote the project. I borrowed it because it's a really fun project I bought. I've changed it over the years because I've been using it for a long time, but it's pretty similar to what they started with. They wrote this formula, and it's this little formula to figure out how much you'll have for a down payment. This does remove money to use for closing costs later. That's why we have to do this formula. So this will give us how much of the money that you saved up that we can actually put towards the down payment. So that's what this part's going to do. Make sure you put your totals you had from saving from question 7, your list price that we just got for number 8, and put in this formula and figure out your down payment. Now, if you get a negative number, it means the house was too expensive. You bought too big of a house with your down payment that you had saved up, and you didn't have enough to do it. So, if you go buy a multi-billion-dollar house or even $1 million house, you probably won't have enough for your down payment to do that, and so you have to go back and pick a cheaper house. Now, I do have to warn you, because this happened at least once. Your house can't be too cheap either. I've actually had a student in the past where I think they had $20,000 saved up for their down payment, and then they picked out a house that was like $10,000. It was like a mobile home or something. That doesn't work either, because then you don't have a mortgage, and they didn't even catch that. They tried to do the rest of the project like they had a mortgage. I don't want you to be in that situation, so make sure that the house you buy, you actually it's expensive enough that you would actually have to borrow money to get it. So if you have a $20,000 saved up and you need to buy a house that costs more than $20,000, that's just my second thing I have to warn you about. Okay, so pick out your house and then find your down payment. Then figure out your principal. Remember that principal is how much you actually borrow. So if you have the house cost and you know how much you're going to put down, how much you're going to pay up front, then the principal is going to be what's left, how much you still have to borrow after you pay that down payment. Number 11, we're going to calculate some closing costs. When you buy a house, closing costs are some flat costs, some flat rate costs that you have to pay just to get the loan, and then sometimes you buy what are called points. The points are basically a percentage of the loan amount, and you pay those because the bank will give you a lower interest rate for your loan if you pay some points. So we're going to pay 4 points. That's how we're going to get our lower interest rate, and we're going to pay a $1,500 flat rate. So again, the 4 points, that's a percentage of your loan that you have to pay to get your lower interest rate. So find those two values, find that value, add up your $1,500 to that, and get your closing costs. Now, if you did everything correctly, on number 12, you should see that your closing costs plus your down payment, if you put those together, should equal all the money you had in number 7. That should line up perfectly if you're doing everything right. If not, that's a good way to tell that maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you didn't calculate the points correctly or didn't use this down payment formula correctly. So number 12 is just a step to just kind of double check and make sure. You should be spending all of the savings you had from question number 7 for the down payment and the closing costs. Okay. Number 13 just mentions that sometimes people don't have enough for a down payment and they might need to borrow some money. So let's just suppose maybe you had to borrow an extra $8,000 for your closing costs to make enough, to get your house. If it was a 6-year loan with monthly payments and an interest rate of 3.5%, what would your monthly payment be? Since you're calculating a loan payment, you'll definitely want to use the loan payment formula. So we'll practice because we'll be using that again here in a minute. But that's just an idea. Won't really affect the rest of the project. Doesn't really affect any of the following answers. But important information to note that sometimes people do this. Borrow a little bit extra money to pay their down payment. Okay, number 14. I want you to go online and find a mortgage rate. I don't need it to be a specific mortgage rate from a specific company. I highly say or recommend do not give your information into any banks or mortgage companies. If you do give them your contact info, they will hound you for weeks trying to get you to get a loan with them. Please don't do that. I'm pretty sure if you just Google mortgage rates today or today's average mortgage rates, I think Google on the search page actually gives you a list of some like the current rates. You can just screenshot that and print it off. I do want you to print off an online page where you found these rates. I've had good luck in the past looking at bankrate.com because a lot of times they'll share rates without making you give all your information away. If you find yourself answering more and more questions, then probably just back out, try a different website because you do not need to give them that much information. I'm not that worried about getting an accurate rate. It's more about just getting a rate that you found online that you can use. It'll kind of keep it current, and be a little more interesting, and everybody will have their own rate they find. I do ask that you find a fixed rate APR. So a fixed rate just means that the rate's not going to change. There's called an adjustable rate mortgage or an ARM. Those rates change, they fluctuate. That's why they typically start out lower because they can increase over time. A fixed rate mortgage won't change over time. The interest rate will always be the same. That means your payments shouldn't vary too much. They should be pretty much the same the whole time. So yeah, go ahead and print off a page, shows the where you got this, whether it was Google or the bank rate or whatever. It should have the APR, which is the interest rate, and it should have the length or the term, how many years it is. A lot of mortgages are 15 years or 30 years, so that'd be pretty typical. I've had 10 and 20 in the past. That's fine. You shouldn't have a 5-year. If you have like a 5-year, something's up. That's kind of weird. But 10, 15, 20, 30, that's all fine. Okay. Once you have the APR and the term, write them down here. Don't forget to attach the page as well. And then, now that we know the interest rate and the term, we can actually calculate your monthly payments. We're going to use the principal. We calculate on the previous page. That'll be our principal P. And we'll use the loan payment formula, and then the APR and term, and we'll put that all in here and figure out how much you're going to pay per month on this loan. Now, number 16 just reflects that in real life, you don't just get to pay the mortgage. Sadly, you also have to pay other fees and other taxes as well. So this just kind of shows that. So here, you're going to be adding some insurance, some taxes, and some homeowners fees associated with your mortgage. All these things are going to get thrown on there, and you're going to add those in. Just note, this is not going to affect the rest of the project. This is just a little question to kind of show that in real life, once you get your mortgage rate, then you have to add a little bit more to that, and that's probably what you're really going to be paying per month on that mortgage. Not just the mortgage amount, but those other things as well. Okay, the last part of the project, part 3, is repaying the loan. So now that you've found your mortgage amount, your payment, you know how much you're going to pay per month on this mortgage. Now we're going to think about what it would be like to pay that back. So first off, we want to find how much total you pay. This isn't really a formula you need to know. I've had students ask in the past, is there a formula for this? No, but if you know your monthly payment, and you know you pay that 12 times a year because it's monthly, and you know the term, how many years you're going to pay it, then you can multiply those and find your total, right? So we're just going to take the payment we got from 15, multiply it by 12 months a year and times the number of years or that term, and that'll give you your total paid, because that's how many times you're going to pay that payment, that monthly payment. Once you know your total paid, you can subtract the original principal, how much you borrowed in the first place, and you'll know how much is interest. So we'll subtract just the principal and find the interest. I just want the dollar amount. I don't want a percent. So I just want to know, what dollar amount of money out of that total you paid from 17 is actually interest. Now we're going to look at paying it off early. So a lot of people will pay their loan a little bit faster because then they can pay a lot less in interest. So what if we wanted to pay it 5 years sooner than the required length? So if I have a 30-year loan, I'm going to pay it in 25 years. Or if I have a 15-year loan, I'm going to pay it in 10 years. Well, we're going to calculate new monthly payment based on that rate of pay. So if you had a 30-year loan, you go back and redo this formula with, instead of 30, mark it down to 25. And you do the loan payment formula with 25 years. Or if you had a 15-year loan, you do loan payment formula with 10 years. And that's what will give you a new payment amount. It should be a little bit higher because you're paying it off faster. But it'll actually mean savings because in the long run, you'll pay less interest. If you pay it off faster, you're not going to make as many interest payments. Okay, well, once you know your new payment, your faster payment, let's figure out how much you're going to pay total. So take that new payment, multiply it by the 12 months again, because you're still paying that monthly, and then times the number of years. So if I had a 30-year loan that I'm paying in 25 years, I'm going to multiply my new payment by 12 months a year times 25, and that gives me my new total. So now I know how much I'm going to pay total. How much money do you save? Well, just compare the amount we got from 20 with the amount we got back in 17, and you can see the difference, right? So the difference will tell you how much you saved. So you subtract those and find out how much you're having in savings. Okay, last page of the project. Suppose you can afford to pay an extra 25%. So you're not sure that you can definitely pay 5 years earlier, but you want to look at maybe paying an extra 25% each month. How much would your payment be if you paid an extra 25%? So go back to your question 15 payment, original payment. Not the one we just did to try and pay 5 years earlier, but the original payment when you're paying the full term. And let's take this amount and that payment and multiply it by 0.25 to get extra 25%. Add that back onto it, and you get your new amount. So for example, if you had a $100 month payment, you take 25%, I get you $25 extra. So you add and you pay $125 each month. That would be your new payment versus your previous like $100 payment. Okay, now that you have a new payment that's a little bit higher than what you're supposed to be paid, you're paid a little bit extra, you're actually going to pay this loan off early. Now, how much early is going to depend on some things like your payment and your APR and stuff like that. So I can't just tell you exactly what that is. That's what this formula is here for. So this formula will tell you the time it will take you to pay off this loan with that extra 25% a month. Now, you will have a log button on here. So that log on here, that is just a button on your scientific or graphing calculator. So right here, you'll see this button log. This is my graphing calculator. The scientific calculators that have like sine, cosine, tangent should have that same button. It works a lot like a square root. You type the log and then you type in your number, and that's how you get, the answer. So here I would type log and then I type all this stuff inside, close the parentheses, divide, and do another log, and get my answer. Now, time for this should save you a few years. I think if you have like a 30-year loan, it's probably going to be closer to like 20 years maybe. If you have a 15-year loan, it might be closer to 10. But with the time savings, this of course should be a time. It should be less than your original term. So if you have 30 and you get like 35 from this, you know you did something wrong. And it shouldn't be like a decimal. You shouldn't get like 0.5 or something because it's not going to be half a year. It should be a number of years to pay this off. Again, I think it feels like around, 30-year loan is around 20 years, a 15-year loan is around 10 years. But again, that fluctuates greatly depending on how much you're paying per month, your APR, your principal, all that stuff. So I can't say exactly what that would be, but it should be a time frame that's shorter than your original time frame. Now that you know your new payment and your new time frame, you can figure out how much you're going to pay using this method. So if you pay that 25% extra each month, how much will we pay? Well, we're just going to take that time we just found, multiply times that payment, and again, don't forget to multiply by 12 because we're doing that 12 times a year, and that'll figure out how much we're paying total now. We're going to compare that with our original, how much we were repaying on the previous page when we did the total we paid on 17. We're going to compare that with what we just calculated now in 24, subtract those, and that'll tell us how much we saved for 25. And then that's the end of the project. So you've saved up for your mortgage, you've found a house, you've found a mortgage rate, calculated your monthly payment, looked at a couple options on paying it early, so you can see how much money you get in savings, those different methods. And that's the idea, that's the whole project. So again, here in the near future, I will give you these bond lifespan and stock results, so you can use those just to kind of show you what I'm going to do. I actually have this little sheet here, talks about the market conditions, what happens to the bonds. So this shows basically I'm going to take some pennies and flip them. And if I get enough pennies, then the bond defaults. The corporate only take half a dozen pennies, the national take 10. I have to flip 12, I do tails, to get the local municipal government to fail, which makes it pretty hard. Those two a lot of times don't fail. 6, that's kind of risky. You can see there's actually a pretty good chance each year that it'll fail. Overall, a pretty high chance. But again, if it succeeds, you might make a lot of money. So I'll do that. I'll check and see. And if they default, I'll let you know how long they lasted before they defaulted. Then we'll calculate the annual return for the stocks. To do that, I'm going to draw cards from a deck of cards. So this will be the possible results. So I'll draw 3 cards, 1 for each kind. So I'll draw a financial corporation card. And if it's, a diamond or a heart, diamond will lose money. Heart will probably make a little bit. Clubs, spades will make more. You'll see that the most you can make is like 20% versus if you do like the pharmaceutical corporation, the second row, that one you can see it can make up to 26%, and the tech company can make up to 50%. So again, the more risk there is, the higher the reward can be. But it all depends on what it does. We don't know if the stock's going to go up to 50% or the stock could actually drop by 50%. And again, that's annual drop 50%. So every year for 5 years, it's been losing half its value. That's what that means when I say, drop by 50%. So again, we won't know what happens with those right away. I'm going to share those about a week into after I've posted this and you've hopefully started the project and gotten into it a bit. So once those marking conditions are posted, then you have all the information you need to know so you can do the rest of the project. You're welcome to finish it as early as you want and submit as early as you want. Just remember, it does need to be submitted by that March 20th deadline. So you need to have the whole thing done and turn it by then. In my experience teaching this class for going on almost 10 years now, using this project, in some form for almost 10 years, students that fail this project are ones that don't turn it in. So if you really want to fail this project, don't get it done. That's kind of the big thing. If you get it done and turn it on time, most everybody gets a C or better. In fact, I'd say most people probably get an A or B, especially if they take the time to double check answers, make sure they're doing stuff right. I definitely go through and make sure that when you make a mistake that you only lose points on that one step. I don't let it carry through and hurt you the rest of the project. So when I'm careful to grade it so that only the mistakes you make are what lose points, not the later repercussions of those. So again, if you have any questions about the project, anything I didn't address, or maybe I did but you want more clarity, please contact me. I'm happy to help with the project. You're welcome to find other people in Math 103 and talk to them about the project. I've got classes in Rapid and Spearfish, so if you're in those locations, there's people in person taking it who are working on the projects as well. But yeah, ask me any questions. I'm happy to help. Hopefully this helped you get started on the project. I'll do another one of these when we get to our second project so you can see what's going on with that before we start that. But I think that's about it for me for today. So have a good day, and hopefully you'll hear from me again soon.